of the gospel.
There are two things I think we should do as a church. There are many in the church who love to rush to a judgment position when we should be understanding of both sides of the argument. And what I say when I say is that not that we should remain neutral on the fence. I think what R. Kelly did, and I believe that he did it, was horrendous. But there are dynamics to the story that we need to understand. It doesn't excuse what he did, but we need to understand it. Just today I was watching a video of an interview that his brother did. And his brother was talking about the fact about how they were molested when they were children by their sister, their older sister. And most individuals who get involved with pedophilia, there is an introduction to sexuality from a very early stage from somebody who normally was the abuser to them. And so they simply end up replicating and being cyclical with what it was that they experienced with others. The problem is that they become so extreme with it that it becomes out of control, right? I have no doubt that what R. Kelly found himself involved in was a lifestyle of being a pedophile, basically, to young girls. He was attracted to these young, early teenage girls, and messed up a lot of their lives, and controlled them because they were that young, controlled them, doing what he wanted them to do and so forth. And so it's not that he's guilty of it, but we have to understand that what he perpetrated on others was also perpetrated on him and on other members in his family. And some of us can understand that reality because statistically there is somebody watching this who was abused as a child or went through that experience as a child. And most people react in a way where they become angry, they become annoyed that it happened, they want to react, they want to lash out, and they want justice in some way, shape, or form. That's the natural, normal response. There are others who internalize it though, and then who begin to exhibit it through their own living, and it comes from a place of pain, right? As a Christian church, we should never condone what R. Kelly did. We should never condone the damage that he caused on other people. But at the same time, we should remember that Christ's blood was shed for even him. It's not negated because he committed a sin or sins. And his sins is exactly why Christ died, to forgive them. It doesn't mean that he doesn't go through a period of experiencing prosecution and justice and all that type of stuff that normally goes along with understanding that reality. But we cannot, as a Christian family, forget that Christ died for the ungodly. That's what the Bible says. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So I understand that while the blood was shed freely for everybody, it's a person's individual responsibility to accept it. And if R. Kelly has not reached a place where he has accepted that clearly and not only accepted it but repented of it, he's going to continue the cycle. There's a struggle. It's a struggle going on. But I believe that he did commit these things. I watched the series, and I believe that he did commit these things. I believe that they're not these ladies aren't going to lie about something like that. Aren't going to lie, not just if it happened to them or the ones that were speaking on behalf of family members that it happened to. They're not going to lie about something like that and be so detailed about things that they witnessed and that they experienced. I remember back in the day when we were all as kids wondering whether or not he was actually married to Aaliyah or not, right? And was Aaliyah 18 or was she really 14 or was she this? And then now it causes the speculation to, well, when she died, was it a suspicious death or just to keep her quiet, or was this, did she die from something that was natural? There's things that we will never know. It's like the eternal question, well, who shot Tupac? We'll never know, basically, maybe not until we get to heaven. But the truth is, people experience life in a real way, whether they're famous or they're not. And there are previous hurts that cause people to react, which is why if you are a person that is going through a life challenge, don't ever internalize it to the point where you can't seek help for it. Because the more you internalize it is the more it festers and becomes a part of your actions. When if it's spoken of, if you went to see somebody that could help you through the process, whether that's a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever that is, then you would end up coming to a place where you can begin to heal from the experience instead of always being angry about it. I believe a lot of what R. Kelly did was based from a place of anger, either hatred or anger. It's either self-hatred and anger, because it's what you are. You are simply reflecting what you experienced as a child, and so that's where my position. But I think the church should be just as quick to. The church should be just as quick to realize that Christ is still in the nature of forgiving people like R. Kelly. The same way he's forgiven us. But for the grace of God, there go I.
I think, but I know what shocked a lot of people was the fact that he had people help him, because I understand that he was sick, but there's other people who aren't sick like he is, were helping him for financial gain. So what do you have to say to people in the church who, when they see things going wrong, no matter what it is, they feel like they can't speak up?
Again, there's two ways to look at that. Number one, always be wary of people that want to keep your secrets, instead of people who encourage you to live by principle. What I mean when I say that is this. If your position in life and your wealth in life causes you to have people around you who will continue to encourage you to do what is wrong so that they can stay fed, then that's not somebody you want around you. The people you should want around you are people who are always willing to be honest with you, even at the expense of the friendship. Because then those are people who live by principle. One thing that I think is lacking today is learning how to live by principle instead of living by feelings, right? It's part of what I preached about on Sabbath when I was up there on Sabbath, is the fact that we make a lot of decisions these days based upon feelings and not based upon an ethic or a principle. We need to get to a place where we are even selecting our friends based off of principle and not based off the fact that, oh, we went out the other night, had a great time, we had a few laughs, so yeah, we can be best friends. That's not how you should go about choosing the people. Worse, if you're choosing a person like that to marry based off of feelings. There should be an ethic, a driving principle or principles that cause you to make some of those more intimate decisions of life a little bit more carefully. Because when you have something that governs you that is outside of your feelings process, then and you have disciplined yourself to make the decision for the principle on a continuous basis, then regardless of how you feel, you know you're always going to be making the right decision, because you're making it based off of a governing principle that supersedes your life and that is proven to work, right? And so the biblical model is why it's always the best thing to follow, because the biblical model is something that is principled outside of your feelings, but governs your feelings nonetheless, and allows you to make an appropriate decision for life based off of what is an ethic and what is a principle. You need that in your life. If you don't have that in your life, and if you're not striving for that in your life, you're always going to be mired in making decisions based off of your feelings. The problem with your feelings is one day you like and one day you don't like. It's not consistent. It's not as consistent as it should be.
So my last question is for those who are victims and survivors of sexual abuse, not being preyed on by older people, and also for the abusers, how could the abusers reconcile with God and those that they've hurt, And also, how could the survivors, how could they reclaim their voice again? How could they build back their confidence? How could they start back life, not being labeled by what happened to them?
I think being open helps in that process. When we're not open, when we are silent, whether we were abused or we were the abuser, when we are silent about what it is that happened to us, that's when I think we continue to perpetuate the problem. And the mere fact that we don't talk about, what's his name? The guy who plays Medea. Tyler Perry. Thank you. Tyler Perry always talks about the fact that you should never be silent about a negative experience that damages you mentally, because it will harm everybody around you until you deal with it, right? In essence, that's a message that he always sends out there, because if you have an experience that is not a positive one, that's really negative, and really affects you and stunts your ability to grow as a person, and you're continuously internalizing it and you're never expressing it and talking about it, then you'll never heal from it. And until we learn how to be expressive, how to find, and you'd be surprised, sometimes people don't say something because they feel like they won't find acceptance, especially to the people that they're expressing it to, right? You may be surprised at how much people are willing to support, help, and encourage when you talk about your experience versus how many people are condemning. And the church body, I've always said this, the church was created for redemption and not condemnation. That's what the church was created for. And we should find areas of support, especially within the community of faith, where when we express our story, we are either there's a scramble to either find us the help we need, or there's a scramble to give us the support we need because we're experiencing the issue or have gone through something that is hurtful. So I think people that have experienced that, who are still in the church, or who are maybe not in the church, that find themselves stuck in that reality, can find support in the places where they don't think they'll get it. We just have to make sure that as congregations, that we become the type of congregations that is capable of handling that type of pain that people bring to the table, right? In a very supportive way, in a very effective way, so that people can heal. So that's where I am.
Thank you.